Today, we're going to talk about demons. When I was about 4 years old, I saw my first demon. I was used to seeing ghosts. I was born with a gift, and it had been handed down. My mother's side of the family were Métis, and her father had the gift as well as my aunt. So my ancestral grandfather apparently had the gift as well, and his name was Membatu. So when I was 4, and the room that I slept in the lower bunk bed. We rented the house from the Pentecostal church for $10 a month, and at that time, that was a lot of money. My parents worked numerous jobs just to support 5 boys and 3 girls. So they were busy. They had cleaning jobs at night. My mom would come home and she would iron our clothing and she would hang it on our doorknobs. There was no closets in the house. The house had been used for approximately 30 years as a funeral home. And my mom would have never picked that house to live in. But my father, his home had been used when he was growing up as a funeral home. And in fact, he had laid out many people. So he was used to it. And in his words, the dead don't hurt no one. So he didn't find a problem with living in that house. And for the most part, the house was just a normal house. There wasn't anything you seen, there wasn't anything scary. Everything was fine. In fact, I didn't even know what fear was at that time, not until the occurrence. So I was about 4 years old, and um, my mom had received a phone call one morning and she had to leave abruptly. I should tell you that I was a latchkey child, so I was left alone by myself a lot. And my dad came home shortly after she had called him, and he stayed with me that day, and I believe 2 more days before he had a nanny come in to look after us. So my mom was gone for about a month. During that time, my dad would come home at night and he would iron the clothing and hang it on the doors. Well, I would watch the clothes float around like they always did, and the mist and everything land on different knobs. Sometimes I'd kind of make a game out of it, trying to decide where that shirt was going to land. And that night was a little bit different. It didn't feel different in the beginning, but all of a sudden, the mist dissipated, the clothing dropped to the floor. Nothing, all the hangers dropped, and they were all clumped in the hallway on the floor. And I could feel something coming, and it scared me. And I'd never been scared like this before. I didn't feel that kind of fear. I'd never felt fear. And I could hear the scratching. So I kind of pushed myself down in the bed and I just laid there really quietly. And I watched because I was on my side. And this black hooded figure, approximately 7 feet, because the door frames, the ceiling was 9 feet. So I'm judging from the door frames that it was approximately 7 feet tall. I'd never seen a cape before on anybody. I didn't even know what a cape was. So I called him the hooded man. It was a hooded cape that he wore, and he wore black pants, black shoes, and where your hands would be, I could just see claws coming out of the side of the cape. I couldn't see a face, but I felt terror. It was the first time I'd felt that kind of fear in my life, ever. And I was only 4. So nothing to me was scary, but this was scary. And as he passed my room, I had my eyes partly closed so I could just see him and make it look like I was still sleeping so he couldn't see me. And he slowly hovered and he passed by and he went down the hall and I could hear the nails dragging and this weird sound like a dragging sound. And this would occur every night. It was a month before my mom came back home and I was able to explain to her what was occurring. And um, she called the priest from the Catholic Church and he came and he cleared the house and he cleared and he blessed it. And that cost her $10, which was her month's rent. And she really just couldn't afford this. So that was that. Um, it didn't work. And she was upset. And when she called him back, he was going to charge her more and she couldn't afford it. And her nerves were pretty much shot by that time from what had occurred, which I didn't find out till later. The minister that ran the Pentecostal church, Minister T, came over and he knocked on the door and he knew my mom was back and he brought a big box of food for us. He was such a nice man. And my mom, he came in to have coffee. My mom would always give him a loaf of bread. She baked the best bread. And she had given him bread that she had baked that day. And he said he would clear the house. So he said, "Come on." So I went with him. He was like kind of like my uncle. We went around that house and we cleared the house and blessed it and went back to the kitchen. And this kitchen was like a living room. It was massive. It had a couch in it and everything. We were in there and we sat for a while and I remember saying, "I don't think it's gone." And he's like, "Oh, it's gone. We blessed the house. It's gone." Well, it wasn't gone. And my mom seen it. And she didn't like to see anything. So she, about probably 3.5 to 4 weeks after that, they bought a home and they moved out of there. We moved to the country. And in the country, we had a 600 square foot bungalow. So it was a very tiny little home on a great big 3/4 of an acre of land. And it was beautiful. It was just a beautiful, peaceful scene. The house felt calm. Now, that basement was adjacent to the bedroom that I slept in with my one sister. So she generally just, when she fell asleep, she was out like a light. So she had seen the hooded man a few times. That's what I called him. She had told my mom when it would come by at night and my sister seen it and she was scared of everything. We devised a plan where we wanted to close our door and put our giant nightstand against it. And it was heavy. It was a heavy plywood nightstand we could push around the room, the two of us together. Well, my mom said we had to leave the door open a crack. So it was probably about less than an inch open because we really didn't want that um, thing coming in the bedroom. So and we put our night lamp, we had a light, and we set it on there, and so we could see out into the dark and nothing was going to come in. We figured we were safe if nothing came past the light. That was our belief. Mom said nothing could come past light. So that isn't true, but she didn't know that. The so she gave us a medallion of the Virgin Mary. She gave us the Bible. She gave us our crucifix that was in our room and holy water, and we had each had a rosary. And she would come in and we would say our Hail Marys at night, our rosary, and she would sprinkle holy water in the room, leave the room, and there we'd go to sleep. And of course, I'd wake up with this occurring nightly. I didn't know till I was an adult and had spoken to some of my other half siblings that they had actually saw the same thing. My my mom called because she seen the hooded man the one night in the house coming from the basement, and it terrorized her. And I don't really know what occurred with her that night, other than she didn't sleep the whole night. And um, I remember I had my door open and the lights were on in the house, so I was able to walk around freely. And in the morning, she called the Catholic Church where we lived in that town. And because we went to that church every week, and she asked the priest to come over and bless the house. And of course, he charged her money. And she did it. I think it was like $25 then to do that. And it didn't work. So she called him and he came back and she said it didn't work and he wanted to charge her more. And she said, "No, this didn't work. You didn't do your job." And he turned to her and he said, "You haven't been to confession enough, and neither have your children." But we were in confession once a week, and I wasn't doing anything bad as a kid. So to me, it was like, what are you talking about? So I knew he was wrong. So I went to see my girlfriend's mom across town that day after the priest left. And my girlfriend's mom was the same as me. She had a gift. And I sat with her and I spoke for a while, and she told me how to clear the house. And I was helping them to pack at that time because they had to leave because her ex-husband was coming and she had to get out of town before he got there because he was dangerous. And she had been on the run for years with the kids. So I knew I'd never see my friend again, and I was with them for a while and helped them pack. And after that, I left and I went to the Catholic church on my bike. And I went in because it was always open. And the priest, he said, "Well, if you want holy water," because I had a bottle that Sue had given me, so I was just going to fill it up and take it home. And he said, "If you want holy water, you have to have confession." So in the booth I went, not knowing what I was having to confess to. Told him what was occurring, and told me that I had to say 12 Hail Marys and that I had to do two good deeds. I explained to him I had done one that day, helping someone. He said, "Yeah, you have to do more." So I left there thinking, okay. So I got home with the holy water and some ash that he had given me from the palms that he burned. I went in, I put the sign of the cross over every door. So I took a little bit of what the Catholic priest, the Protestant, the Catholic priest, the Pentecostal minister had taught me, and Sue had taught me, and I put it together with what I thought I should do at that time and did it. Sue had also given me two candles. One was white and one was green, and she said use both candles for this type of thing. So I did. So I walked around that house and I told it it was my will, it was my light, and it was to go to the light. It was my way, my will, my rules, go. So I was banishing it from the house. I left one window open in the kitchen. Frankly, it was very hard to get a window open in that house at all. They were old. I never seen that demon again. And I developed a way of clearing the house, and anyone can do it. And so I'd like to take you on a journey to debunk a lot of things, talk to you about the things that are weird, wild, and sometimes that you just can't talk to other people about. So, we're going to explore all kinds of topics. So, if you'd like to come along on that journey with me, please do. And thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.